the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, which is changing its name. So we're changing our name, right, Bobby? To the Go Tennis Podcast. And it's interesting timing because we're actually nominated for an award. We're nominated for the Best Sports and Racket Podcast from the Sports Podcast Awards. And it's hard to change your name when you're trying to get people to vote for you for an award.
Might not be the best time, that's all.
Right. But we'd planned on doing the name change because from a GoTennis perspective, this is the thing we're trying to do. And this is what we want to talk about today, which is basically the rebranding, the consistent branding across all of our platforms. So we originally had the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, which we started kind of mid-pandemic. And then GoTennis has now become a thing. And we're going to bring them together to be the same branding, the same concept, the same entity. Now, you and I have been talking about this for a while, Bobby. What's the point? Why are we doing all this?
Well, I think it's just the continuity. Bring it all together. We're wearing a bunch of hats. There's a bunch of things we're trying to accomplish. And just to simplify the process where GoTennis becomes synonymous with everybody's first click when they want to learn something about Atlanta tennis and tennis in general. So we want to be the source, and rather than the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, there's their nonprofit. This is where you're going to come and you're going to be able to learn about all the things we're doing, and hopefully it'll simplify and better your life.
Better your life. I like that. Definitely better your tennis, right? So in this case, what we're talking about is it's not really a simple rebranding. We're taking the podcast and just making sure it's known as the Go Tennis Podcast. It allows us to expand. It allows anybody in Kentucky or Wyoming or wherever anybody else is to not look down and go, well, I don't care about Atlanta tennis, and swipe past it. Hopefully it gives us a broader audience, even though we still have kind of a hyper-localized target with the content. Half, if not 2/3 of our content is universal. It's 10 minutes of tennis every week. It's the tips that we're giving at least once a week, and we're hoping to do even more of that in 2025. But it's universal as well as hyper localized, and I think that's really one of the positives about it. Now, as we connect it to, you mentioned there in the middle with the nonprofit, as we connect it to the Go Tennis Foundation as well, I think we can push for a little bit more of community outreach and community work.
Well, and again, I think you're right. And when you mentioned that earlier, I was going to jump in on you and say, well, he's being humble right here. But, you did win an award from the GPTA, which is the Georgia Professional Tennis Association, this year for community outreach and the work that you've done. And a lot of it has been done through what we're doing with Go Tennis. So, again, these are things that, as you said, we'd love other people, other players or other instructors in other states to see what we're doing and say, hey, we want to get involved. Can we help you run this in our state? So yes, it's very much part of what we're trying to accomplish. And we think it's a unifier. Obviously, everybody wants to get back, especially this time of year. It resonates. So, this is a good time to be spreading the message and saying, hey, there's a lot of things that we're trying to do. And that's why we're coming to you today. We're asking for help, because it's not an easy process. We're tennis track instructors by trade, and we're treading in some interesting waters, having a great time doing it. But, we face the challenges. There's only two of us, and Jovi and your wife, and Gio's only two, so we can only ask so much of him.
That's true.
And my daughter's a teenager, so, that comes with all those things. She's got her own thing. We want to reach out. We're 60,000 tennis players in Atlanta. But there's more good hearts, and there are a lot of people that, even though they might not play, are associated with it. As you've seen in all of tennis, they're rebranding to Racket sports. So our certifications are going beyond what they used to be, just specifically tennis. Where the USPTA has become the RSPA. So there's that going on. So, with Padel and obviously the pickleball boom, there's a lot of people that we feel like are looking to us for some information. And part of what we want them to learn about is what we're trying to do in the community with schools, with players, wherever this road takes us, what we can do. So again, no time like the present to go ahead and put it all under one roof.
Yeah, we make it all the same thing, call it all the same thing. We are asking. It is our ask that says, will you give us a review? Will you give us a 5-star review for we don't care. Just reviews are good. So we're up for an award and we'd love for you to help us, you being the listener. I'm looking at you listening and watching, to be able to go in, make sure you follow us, make sure you click auto download if you don't mind. Costs you nothing and really helps us out a lot. But the reviews are really what we're looking for here. And
Well, let me jump in a second if you don't mind. We're
yeah.
also looking for you to participate. We have a section where we want to hear your tennis playing stories. We want this to be community based. Part of the absolute unique thing about Atlanta, which started us on this journey, was Alta. And the fact that there's this 60,000 person recreational tennis league, unlike anything else that exists in the world. And Alta and tennis is such a unifier in our city that we want to hear the stories, good and bad, because we've been in it, God, and we say this out loud because I've written so many business plans over the years where now I'm saying combined we have 100 years worth of experience in tennis, and that's horrifying. But we've been doing it. But we want to hear your stories because we hear them, and when we talk about it, just for instance, from the podcast, we've gotten a very good response from industry insiders because they feel like it's a place for them to come talk about what they do. And, and in the process, we want the people that we deal with to understand a little bit about what goes through because everybody thinks our life is, oh, well, you play tennis. Yeah, but it's like any other service oriented business. There's a lot that goes into managing egos. Yes, it's fun. I love, I've always said the cover of my autobiography will be I wore short pants to work. So there's certainly the advantages, but we want to hear the fun stuff from more than just what we've encountered. We want to hear it from other people too. So we'd encourage everyone not only to review and look at to see what we're offering, but we want you to get involved and we want to hear what you have to say as well.
Yeah, we've got a lot of things to ask. And Bobby, I was just going to stick with the one thing asking for a review at this point because we asked for too many things. We could go down the list, but yes, let's go tennis.com/my story. It really is that simple. You can put in your story, you can text it in, you can type it in text, you can send in an audio file. If you want to tell the story yourself, we will copy and paste you into the podcast telling the story. We've interviewed some people at multiple clubs saying, oh, yeah, we've got some great stories, but then we haven't heard from you. If you're listening, you know who you are. But we're interested in that as well. But right now, we're focused on the podcast, the rebrand, and the reviews to say, hey, you know what? These guys are doing a great job, or it's not that great, but at least you're working hard. Whatever it is to go in and click that button. And Bobby, in the last couple of minutes, I want to give us a little bit of a shout out, like pat ourselves on the back a little bit, if we can say that. And you mentioned the GPTA award that I accepted. I still think it should have been to GoTennis because as an entity, GoTennis was doing that, and I was just the face of that at the time. So we appreciate that as an award, the Community Outreach Award for 2024, which is great. But we also did so many other things. We had, and I'll read through some things. Our first fall festival was a huge success. The cool number that I saw coming out of that fall festival, Bobby, 8 million impressions we counted in the month of November, starting to promote late October. But within the 30 days around that event, 8 million impressions online and in person. And we thought that was really cool. So we're looking forward to doing that again next year. We got a summer slam we're thinking about doing as well. The podcast obviously is up for the award. We won the Community Outreach Award for last year. We sponsored the Pro League, the AtlantaProLeague.com. We sponsored one of their teams. We'll plan on doing it again this year. We proved a lot of things that people want to do. The trip to the Atlanta Open was a big success. We had over 100 people going to that, even though it was rained out and didn't play out as anybody expected.
Biblical proportions, yes.
Well, and we also proved some things like online registration. Windermere now uses it for registration for their academies, and we've got others in the area that are using it for their ladies' days. There's online registration. Tennis for Children uses it for their monthly recurring fees. So we have that. We have the Bobby. You also use our monthly newsletter.
I was going to say the newsletter is a great information source, and it just gives the local instructor access. Yes, there could be a card for what you do specifically at your club, but look what you can do by informing your folks of all the things that are going on in tennis.
Yeah.
Because it's tough. I mean, we get it. I'm a director. Most of my time is spent on the court. We're trying to facilitate everybody's life to bring more to the people because more is a good thing. And, again, and that jumps off of what we're trying to do with community outreach.
Mm-hmm.
We need everybody involved to really accomplish what we want to accomplish. And that's why we're here. It's a new year, new day.
Yes. And 2025, that digital newsletter is now free. So learn what you want from that. That's fine. But we're offering it to everybody for free because we want to help you. And the cool thing about this, Bobby, if you remember the story, one of the early interviews we did with Greg Rupert of RMC, Reserve My Court, he talked about the beginning of his journey was doing something for himself. He fixed one problem that he had. The play-by-point guy, he had a similar story where he said, I just did it for one club and I got it right. And then I went to the next club and I moved on. So one of the things we're doing in tennis, since you and I, you say we've got thousands of years of experience, I think you said 100, but in this case, we're doing this for ourselves first. We're making sure we're making our own lives better in the tennis world. We're helping the Rob Carvers of the world and the Wes Adams and the Ben Hesleys. And we're saying to them, hey, look, we can make your lives better, your tennis life, your racket sports life. Let us help you in some of these ways. Yeah, we benefit in X, Y, and Z ways. But in this case, we're here to help. And I think that's kind of the thing that nobody ever gets to hear in this industry, Bobby. Like, no, really, I'm here to help, and I'm not going to charge you for this thing. It's just something people don't hear anymore.
Well, it's hey, you got to make a living. We're going to ask for help, and that's why we're doing the club and doing the things that we think that could raise. But we want to do it where you get a benefit as the end user. Join the club. Look at the discounts you get. But the reality is, you need money to accomplish anything you're trying to do. We want to do this more. I'd like to get off the court a few hours extra a week so I could spend more time with this. We want to do trips. Those are all time consuming, fun stuff. I mean, there's a charity, a Goodwill, that's doing an 80s party. And I was like, you're stealing my ideas. Get out of here. These are things we want to do with the tennis community, but they take time and they take resources. So, we're going to really try to get into the community this year, shake some trees. Listen, if you got a product, you got a story, you have something that you think that relates to the tennis playing audience, give us a call, send us an email. Let's get you involved.
And the question there is, can we get into everybody's inbox, so to speak? And in this case, we have the podcast that gets a certain distance out there. But in this case, it is, one of the questions we like to ask, what do you wish you could do, but you either don't have the time for, bandwidth, staff, whatever it is? If there's something you wish you could accomplish, write it in an email and send it to me or Bob. Our emails are in the show notes every time. Just let us know what you want to do. This is one of the reasons we use the King of Tennis question consistently, which says, hey, if you were King of Tennis, what would you do or change? And we take those ideas and we do good things with them. Yeah. We say, hey, we're going to go help T2 finally have that high school league that's successful. We're going to go help anybody who wants to do something that just can't quite get it done. We know we can do good business. We can do good for not just the Atlanta community. What we also realized is everybody in the country, we have the ability to expand there as well. And before we forget, I want to make sure we thank our original 2024 podcast sponsor of Signature Tennis Courts, because they are the ones that have helped us make it through the end of the year there. We're always in the market. If you, the listener, again, watcher, anybody interested in sponsoring the podcast or a series of episodes, let us know. There's always that. But Bobby, what are we forgetting? We know we've got our premium membership, which is cheap. It's less than $50 a year. You get extra benefits, extra discounts, all that kind of stuff. We just started the GoTennis Foundation. We now have the 501c3, which is a separate side of things. But community outreach, we're going to get out there and do more. Are we forgetting anything?
Well, let's just jump on, say thanks to the sponsors. Mike Imbernone, it's Signature Tennis is owned by Mike Imbernone. They are the #1 tennis facility building, tennis facility repair in the area. Amazing. I've had a 20+ year relationship with Mike that started at White Columns. that continues at Windermere. He built the courts for the Atlanta Open. Unbelievable customer service, great guy. You know, what more can we say? Hey, we must be doing something right, that somebody who's disestablished in Atlanta that wants to do business. Same thing with T2 Tennis, as you said. Joel Ballantyne, unbelievably successful, the most successful, you know, flexible play tennis league in the country. Amazing product that he's designed. 20 years at least, again, how long ago it started, was willing to listen to us and say, hey, okay, you know, the high school league is a good idea. You know, how can we help facilitate that? So, you know, these are the guys. Cadillac was at our fall festival. Cadillac has a long history. They're US Open sponsors. They have been involved with the Atlanta Tennis Open. You know, the marketing rep is a personal friend of mine. These are people that want to be involved in tennis and want to make everybody's life better through activity. So we're very fortunate to have these guys in our corner, and you know, we're trying to connect the dots. And the more people we hear from, the more it helps us figure out and simplify what we're trying to do for ourselves and for the community. So it's like we said, it's a lot of fun, and it's great to see 30 years. I don't think it's 30, but 25 with Netcord when it all started, how these ideas are still alive. And, you know, the technology has improved. And, you know, somewhat, this is hysterical. You know, this was something that was brought to me years ago in a multi-level marketing, you know, video phone calls. And here it is without the 10-second lag where I'm speaking and my lips are moving at the same time, rather as opposed to when we used to try to sync it to make it look good. And I used to have my daughter sit on my lap, and because more people showed up at my drills when Emily Rose asked you to show up at the drills, as opposed to when my ugly face did. So, you know, it's great to see where we've come from, but there's still a lot more we want to do. And we're here, it's a new year, we're asking for help. You know, help us, review us, see what we're doing. If you like what we're doing, give us a ring. How do you get involved? How can we get involved more? How can we help you accomplish some things together?
Can't say it better myself. Bobby, I appreciate your time. Thank you,
No
sir.
worries, sir. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everybody out there. Thanks so much.
Bye now.